Okay, welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping into some really fascinating source material today that a listener shared. It's all about success,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe not in the way we always think about it, not like something you have to chase down.
Right.
The core idea here is that success is something you actually attract by the person become.
Yeah, it shifts the focus inward, doesn't it?
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive, we want to really unpack the main ideas from this source on how you actually do that, how you transform into that kind of person success is naturally drawn to, like a magnet.
It's a great way to put it. And it is, a pretty classic perspective in personal development circles. The idea that your external results really start with your internal world, who you are fundamentally.
So success isn't just luck.
Not according to the source, no. It suggests success leaves clues, very specific clues. And if we understand those clues, if we embody them, then success is sort of pulled towards you.
Okay, I like that. So we're basically exploring the building blocks, yeah, of that magnetic personality.
You could say that.
We'll cover the foundations, the inner work, how you deal with the outside world, keeping momentum,
Yeah.
all based only on what's in this source material.
Sounds good.
All right, let's dive in then. The very first principle of this source really hammers home taking full responsibility for your life.
Yeah, this is ground zero, isn't it? The source basically says you've got to see yourself as being in the driver's seat.
Right.
Understanding that where you ultimately land, success, failure, whatever it really comes down to you, it makes a very clear distinction between that and, blaming circumstances or other people,
Yeah.
making excuses.
There's that story in the source, it's quite striking, about the young man who just complained constantly about his job,
I remember that one.
hated the boss, the pay, felt totally stuck. But then someone asked him, okay, so what are you doing about it?
And he had no answer.
Exactly. Blank stare. It hadn't even occurred to him that he could do something.
Mm.
The source uses that to show the difference, right? Successful people don't wait. They figure out how to make things happen. They ask, how can I?
Instead of just saying, I can't, yeah, it's a fundamental mindset shift.
So if you accept that responsibility, if you're in the driver's seat, well, the next logical question is, where are you actually driving?
Right. You need a destination.
Yeah, the source is clear. If you want to attract success, you have to know what that looks like for you. Got to have it marked on your map.
And this brings up a really critical question for you listening. Are the goals you have truly yours?
That's a big one.
It is. The material is really strong on this point. These goals need to come from your genuine desires, not just, what your family expects or what society says looks good.
Like that story of the woman.
Oh, the bookstore owner, yes. She walks away from a high-paying corporate job she hated
Miserable.
to open a small bookstore, which was her actual dream. And pursuing that, her own goal, just changed everything for her, her energy, her whole outlook.
And there's a practical tip the source gives here. Almost sounds a bit mystical. Write your goals down.
Ah, yes, the magic of writing it down.
It says, something magical happens when you put pen to paper.
Yeah.
And don't just do it once. Review them every day. Morning and night, maybe.
It keeps them alive, doesn't it? Keeps them right there in front of you. Anchors them.
Okay, so you know your destination, your goals, you've taken responsibility, foundational stuff. But here's where the source says it gets really interesting. Goals alone. They're just wishes, basically, elaborate daydreams.
You need action. Consistent action. Persistent action.
Which leads us to discipline.
Discipline. The source calls the bridge between goals and accomplishment. I like that.
Me too. It's powerful.
It's that grit, that internal thing that makes you do what's needed even when it's difficult.
Like getting up early when you don't want to.
Or saving money instead of spending it. Or just pushing through when things feel tough and you'd rather just, quit.
Yeah, the source doesn't really pull punches on this. It admits discipline isn't exactly popular. We live in an instant gratification world, right? But it's firm. It says, there are no elevators to success. You have to take the stairs. You got to climb.
And there's that great analogy it uses too. Success is like building a house.
Right, brick by brick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Each action, each decision, that's one brick. One brick doesn't look like much.
Seems insignificant.
Yeah. But lay one brick consistently, day in, day out, what happens? Eventually you get a wall, then a room, then the whole structure. It's that compounding effect of small, consistent actions over time. That's what builds something real.
And that consistency, it builds its own momentum, doesn't it? The source talks about that cycle.
Success breeds success.
Yeah.
When you start seeing even small results from being disciplined, taking action,
It fuels you.
it totally fuels you, makes you want to keep going.
Okay, shifting gears a little bit. This source material puts a huge emphasis on what's going on inside your inner world. Let's talk mindset. It uses that lovely analogy of a garden.
It's a really vivid picture, isn't it? The basic idea is whatever you plant in the garden of your mind, that's what's going to grow.
Makes sense.
So if you let seeds of, negativity, doubt, fear, if you let those take root, that's the harvest you'll get.
But if you consciously plant positivity, confidence, faith,
then that's what flourishes. The message is really about being incredibly careful, vigilant even, about what thoughts, what influences you allow into that mental space.
which leads to maybe one of the most profound lines in the source.
Yeah.
Makes this bold prediction.
Oh, yeah, the 5-year one.
That's the one.
Yeah.
If you want to know what your life will look like in 5 years, look at 2 things: the books you read and the people you associate with.
Wow. That's a heavy statement when you really think about it.
It really is. The ideas you feed your mind, the conversations you're part of, they shape your thinking, which shapes your actions, which shapes your results. It's a direct line.
Definitely.
And let's dig into the reading part. The source is very direct. Successful people, they read.
They're learners.
There's that quote,
Yeah.
formal education will make you a living, but self-education will make you a fortune.
Powerful distinction.
The practical advice is simple. Try to read for at least 30 minutes a day, and this is crucial, according to the source you have to apply it.
Right. Knowledge alone isn't enough.
Exactly. It warns, knowledge isn't power, it's potential power. It only becomes real power when you actually do something with what you learned.
So going back to the garden, reading plants the seeds and self-education, applying, that's like tending the soil, watering the plants, building that inner landscape.
Nice connection. Okay, so from the content of your mind, let's talk about how you navigate challenges. Your attitude. The source uses that classic line.
Yeah.
Your attitude determines your altitude.
Ah, yes. It's not about what happens to you, is it? It's all about how you choose to respond.
That story of the shoe salesman illustrates it perfectly.
It really does. Same situation, right.
Right.
2 salesmen sent to a developing country where nobody wears shoes.
Zero market, you might think.
Well, the first guy does. He cables back. Situation hopeless. Coming home.
Gives up immediately.
But the second salesman sees the exact same thing and cables back. Glorious opportunity. Nobody has shoes yet.
Complete opposite take.
Completely. Same facts, different attitude, different response. The source argues a positive attitude looks for the opportunity, faces the challenge believing it can be overcome.
And this ties right into how you look at failure, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The source really pushes back on the idea that failure is the opposite of success.
It says it's part of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
An inherent part of the journey. Successful people, it argues, don't get derailed by failure. They learn from it. They extract the lesson and keep moving.
Like the Thomas Edison example.
The classic. Thousands of attempts for the light bulb. And his quote, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work."
It's an amazing mindset.
It really makes you pause and ask yourself, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How do you usually frame failure? Is it a final stop sign or is it just, data?
A lesson.
Good question. Okay, so building on mindset and attitude, let's talk habits. The consistent actions. The source quotes Aristotle. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit.
Such a foundational idea.
The message seems to be that successful lives aren't built on grand, one-off gestures, but on the bedrock of successful habits.
Yeah, those consistent routines, waking up early, maybe exercise, planning your day, setting aside time for learning, that kind of stuff.
And the source gives some practical insight here, too, suggesting it takes about, 21 days?
Around 21 days of doing something consistently to start forming a new habit, yeah. But the math it uses is what really grabbed me.
The 1% improvement thing.
Exactly. Imagine getting just 1% better at one small thing every single day. It seems tiny.
Negligible.
Right. But compound that over a year. You're not 365% better, you're 37 times better. It just shows the incredible, often invisible power of small, consistent, incremental improvements. Those little habits stack up.
That's huge. And kind of woven through all this inner work, the mindset, the attitude, the habits, is self-awareness.
Yes. Crucial. Understanding your own thoughts, why you react the way you do, your emotions, strengths, weaknesses.
How do you develop that according to the source?
Well, it suggests deliberate practice. Regular self-reflection is key, asking yourself why. Why did I do that? Why did I feel that way?
Looking inward.
And also looking outward. It strongly recommends seeking honest feedback from others, even if it's uncomfortable to hear.
That could be tough.
It can be, but that outside perspective can be so valuable for seeing your blind spots, for really understanding how you come across.
Okay, let's step outside the purely internal for a moment. The source places quite a bit of weight on your external connections, your network.
There's that pretty blunt statement.
Your net worth is determined by your network.
Yeah. And tied to that is the idea, you might have heard this before, that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
That really makes you stop and think about your circle, doesn't it?
It does. Are the people closest to you lifting you up, challenging you in good ways? Are they generally aligned with the direction you want your life to go?
So the advice that follows is be proactive about it.
Exactly. Actively seek out people who are already where you aspire to be, people who inspire you, who push you to grow.
And finding a mentor gets a specific mention.
Big time. The source suggests a good mentor can literally shave years off your learning curve, just by sharing their experience, their perspective, helping you avoid pitfalls.
Makes sense.
And it adds an important point. Mentorship isn't just about taking. You need to bring value to that relationship too. It's a two-way street.
How do you find these people?
Well, it suggests practical things like going to seminars, workshops, joining relevant groups or associations, places where people interested in similar things gather.
So moving beyond just that core 5 people or a mentor, the source also talks about broader relationships. Success isn't usually a solo mission.
Not at all. It's deeply connected to building trust, collaborating effectively with others.
Any tips from the source on how to build strong relationships?
Yeah, some really fundamental but powerful ones, like becoming a genuinely good listener.
Actually hearing people.
Making them feel heard, valued. That goes a long way. And the other big one is simply following through, being reliable, doing what you say you're going to do. That builds trust.
And speaking of trust, integrity. That comes up as absolutely essential.
Foundational. It means being honest, keeping your word, doing the right thing, even when nobody's watching.
Why is that so critical for attracting success, according to the source?
Because integrity builds trust. And trust, the source basically says, is the currency of life and business. It's everything.
Plus, it probably feels better internally, too.
Absolutely. It mentions that living with integrity brings a kind of inner peace, a clear conscience.
Okay, so we know the path isn't always smooth sailing, right? Challenges happen. How does the source suggest handling them? Resilience comes up a lot. First, persistence.
Yeah, persistence. Defined here as just refusing to quit. Keeping going despite the obstacles, the setbacks, the failures. It's painted as a key thing that separates people who achieve from those who don't.
That story about Colonel Sanders.
Oh, it's incredible, isn't it? Rejected 1,009 times before he got a yes for his KFC recipe.
1,009 times. Imagine stopping at 1,008.
Right. It's mind-boggling persistence.
But the source adds a key detail, doesn't it? Persistence isn't just blindly doing the same thing over and over if it's clearly not working.
Exactly. It's not just stubbornness. It's about learning from what failed, adjusting your approach, tweaking your strategy, and then trying again. Smart persistence.
And it reminds us that big success often takes time. We tend to underestimate what they can do in a decade.
That's a great reminder in our impatient world. Good things take time to build.
Okay, so persistence keeps you going. What about bouncing back when you do get knocked down? That's resilience.
Yes, resilience, the ability to spring back from adversity. And the source offers a really powerful frame for this. Setbacks aren't final.
They contain a seed.
The seed of an equal or greater benefit if you look for it. It requires shifting your perspective.
Which loops back to reframing failure, like we talked about with Edison.
Exactly. Seeing it not as a verdict on you, but as a learning opportunity, a stepping stone. The source gives an example of a young entrepreneur whose first business tanked.
Devastating, probably.
Yeah, but the lessons learned, the knowledge gained from that failure were the direct foundation for his next very successful venture.
It also mentions the importance of a support network here, right?
It does. Resilience isn't just about individual toughness. Having people around you supporting you. The source says no one succeeds alone, and maybe no one fails alone either, in the sense that support helps you get back up.
And if resilience is bouncing back, that connects to adapting to change, right? The world keeps shifting.
Absolutely. The source stresses that change is constant. So being adaptable, flexible, That's key for long-term success. Don't be too rigid.
I'll get stuck.
Right. Be willing to change your tactics, maybe even pivot your whole direction if the situation demands it. It tells that story. Was it the Boogie Whip company?
Yeah, those antenna things.
Right. That market died, but the company survived because they adapted. They started making other car accessories. It's about seeing the bigger picture and being flexible in how you get where you want to go.
Okay, so with all this stuff to do, the goals, the discipline, the learning, adapting, how do successful people actually manage their energy and attention day to day? The source points squarely at focus.
Yeah, and think about how hard focus is today. The nonstop notifications, social media, endless distractions.
It's a battle.
It really is. The source emphasizes that people who attract success are masters at eliminating those distractions, protecting their focus. There's that quote, where focus goes, energy flows, your attention directs your energy.
So practically, how do you do that?
Well, one technique mentioned is time blocking. Literally scheduling specific chunks of time for your most important tasks and treating that time as sacred. No interruptions allowed.
And it dismisses multitasking.
Calls it a myth, pretty much. Says your brain is just switching back and forth rapidly, which actually drains energy and reduces quality. Better to focus deeply on one thing at a time.
There's another crucial part of focus the source brings up, saying no.
Yes. This is huge. The source suggests successful people are often just as proud of the things they choose not to do as the things they accomplish.
Why is that?
Because saying no to things that are merely good or okay, or things that don't really align with your main goals, frees up your time and energy to say a big, enthusiastic yes to the truly great opportunities, the things that matter most.
Which flows right into time management. Time is the one resource you can't get more of.
Exactly. The source calls it our most precious asset. And a key habit is prioritizing the important over the merely urgent.
The stuff that screams loudest isn't always the most valuable.
Precisely. It mentions the Eisenhower matrix concept, sorting tasks based on importance and urgency, as a way to make sure you're spending your time on activities that genuinely move you closer to your big goals, not just putting out fires all day.
Saying no comes back here, too.
Definitely. Saying no to tasks or requests that don't align with your priorities is essential for effective time management.
Okay, one more tool from the source, visualization. It sounds powerful.
It's presented as a really potent mental technique, not just idle daydreaming, though.
Right.
It's about deliberately using your imagination to program your subconscious mind, creating a really clear, detailed mental picture of already having achieved your goal.
Getting specific.
Very specific. Engaging all your senses in the mental rehearsal. What does success look like, sound like, feel like, even smell or taste like? Making it vivid and real in your mind.
But the source is careful to clarify, isn't it? Visualization isn't magic.
Absolutely not. It's not a substitute for action. You can't just sit and visualize and expect results to appear.
So what's its purpose?
It's a tool, a powerful one, the source argues, to motivate you to take action, to help you maintain that laser focus, and to strengthen your commitment, especially when things get tough or take longer than you expected. It keeps the why alive.
Got it. Now, the source is pretty consistent in reminding us that success, the kind it's talking about, isn't just about work or money. It's more holistic.
Definitely. Health comes up again and again. Physical and mental health are framed as fundamental wealth.
Can't achieve much if you're run down.
Exactly. The source is clear. Successful people prioritize taking care of themselves. That means regular exercise, decent nutrition, enough sleep, finding ways to manage stress, maybe meditation, yoga, whatever works. Your physical vitality fuels everything else.
And mental health, too.
Just as critical. Actively working on your mindset every day, like we discussed. Learning to manage emotions, consciously choosing positivity.
It mentions a specific practice here, the gratitude journal.
Yes, simple but powerful. Just taking a minute each day to write down, say, 3 things you're genuinely grateful for. It sounds small, but it's a way to deliberately train your brain to notice the good, which can really shift your overall perspective and mood.
So health is foundational. What about balance?
Balance is presented as key to true sustainable success, not just killing it in your career while other parts of your life fall apart.
Right.
It's about finding fulfillment and making progress across all the important areas. Your work, sure, but also your relationships, your health, physical and mental, personal growth, maybe spirituality, finances, and contribution.
The danger is neglecting one area for too long.
Yeah, the source warns that creates a deficit that eventually pulls everything else down. It suggests thinking about your different roles in life, like professional, parent, friend, partner, community member, and setting goals within each role. Helps ensure all areas get some attention over time. Not necessarily perfect balance every single day, but overall.
And you mentioned contribution. That feels important.
Very. Giving back, making a difference for others. It's not just presented as a nice thing to do, but as almost integral to deep fulfillment and attracting success. The source actually says, the most successful people I know are also the most giving.
Interesting. It adds meaning beyond just personal gain.
Exactly. That seems to be the point.
Okay, we're covering a lot of ground. Another theme that runs through this is things change. The world changes. So you need to keep learning.
Continuous growth. Non-negotiable, according to this source. I have to always be a student.
How so?
See every experience, even the setbacks, as a chance to learn something. Stay curious. Actively seek out new information, new skills. Take on challenges. The source puts it very bluntly. The moment you stop growing, you start dying.
Wow. Strong words.
Yeah, keeps you on your toes.
Any specific tips on how to keep growing?
One practical piece of advice is to deliberately step outside your comfort zone regularly.
Do things that feel a bit scary.
Exactly. Something that stretches you makes you a little uncomfortable. Because that discomfort zone, the source suggests, that's where the growth happens. That's where you find out what you're capable of.
And learning from failure comes back here too, doesn't it? As part of growth.
Absolutely. It's hammered home again. Failure is feedback. It's data. It's a learning opportunity, not a final judgment. Remember that line. Failure is an event, not a person.
Right. It's something that happened. It's not who you are.
Precisely. If you can internalize that, failure loses a lot of its sting and becomes just part of the process of getting better.
Okay, finally.
Yeah.
After all this effort, all this striving and growing, the source reminds us to do something we often forget. Celebrate.
Yes. Acknowledge your progress. Celebrate the wins, big or small.
Why does that matter so much?
Well, the source explains it provides positive reinforcement. It signals to your brain, hey, that hard work paid off. It recognizes your effort, helps solidify those positive habits, and crucially, it keeps your motivation high for the long haul.
Makes the journey more enjoyable too, presumably.
Totally. It helps you appreciate the journey itself with all its milestones, not just fixate on the final destination. It trains your brain to link effort with positive feelings.
Okay, so bringing all these different pieces together from the source material we've gone through, it paints a really clear picture. Attracting success isn't about some magic trick or just getting lucky.
Not at all.
It really is fundamentally a journey of becoming, of who you are.
That's the core of it. We've touched on so many principles drawn from this source. Taking that radical responsibility, setting clear personal goals, leading the discipline to act, cultivating the right mindset and attitude, installing powerful habits,
Building your network strategically, acting with integrity.
developing persistence and resilience to handle setbacks, staying adaptable, mastering focus and time, using tools like visualization,
Prioritizing your health, seeking balance, contributing to others.
and committing to lifelong learning and growth, even learning to celebrate along the way. And these aren't just, check boxes you tick off once. They're ongoing practices, part of who you strive to be.
Yeah, that central message from the source really sticks with me. Success isn't mainly something you pursue or chase after. It's something that's drawn to you naturally as a result of the person you develop into.
The focus shifts entirely inward. Develop your skills, deepen your knowledge, forge your character.
And the idea is, as you do that work, as you focus on becoming that person,
The source suggests the right opportunities, the right resources, the supportive people. They start to align. They start to show up more naturally. But that growth, that becoming, it never really stops. It's continuous.
So to leave you, our listener, with the source's final really powerful thought to reflect on, you have greatness within you. That potential needs to be developed, nurtured, and acted upon.
It's already there, but it needs activation. And that activation, that first step towards becoming the kind of person who attracts success, it starts with a choice, a decision.
Which leads us to a provocative thought for you to take away, rooted in all these principles. Considering everything we've explored from this source today, what's maybe one single realistic step you could take, maybe even today, to begin that process, to start becoming the person who attracts the success you truly desire?